Hey, this is Miss Cooper with your Chapter 9, Part 1 commentary video. So this week you're going to have two documents. You're going to have a visual study guide, and then you're going to have some notes. So the Part 1 video, I'm going to give you some commentary on this particular document. Chapter 9 is going to deal with the Great Depression. Because we're looking at the world between the wars, because between World War I, which ends in 1919, and World War II, which starts in about 1941, between that time, there's a lot going on in the world. And our objective is still the same, wherein we are analyzing how the Industrial Revolution plays a part in all of these world events. How the fact that imperialism comes because of the Industrial Revolution. And because of imperialism, we get nationalist movements all over the world. And because of those nationalist movements, we get conflict that led all the way to World War I, which they called the Great War. And when it ended with the Treaty of Versailles, it left a lot of loose ends for a lot of countries, including some countries that disappeared from the whole world map. The Ottoman Empire was no longer there at the end of World War I. So as we move into Chapter 9 and we look at this period that's known as the Great Depression, there are a couple of other things that are going on alongside of the Great Depression. We have a rise in dictatorships. We have a specific organization called the Nazi Party that is going to seriously transform the landscape and the cultural ideology in Germany, and that's what fuels World War II. So in the first lesson of Chapter 9, we deal with Germany, France, the United States, and Great Britain. Some important things about how they were affected or their role in the Great Depression include, starting with Germany, it says unemployment had grown to 3 million people by March of 1930 and to 4.38 million people by December. That's only some months. March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. It's not even a whole year. The Depression had paved the way for fear and the rise of extremist parties. When people are frustrated and when people feel hopeless and when people don't know what to do, they turn to the wrong forces sometimes, looking for help. They turn to whomever is speaking out saying, we're going to help you. And those could be extremist organizations. France suffered economic instability in 1932 that had political effects. In June of 1936, a coalition of leftist parties formed the Popular Front government, which started a program that gave workers the right to collective bargaining, a 40-hour work week in industry, and a minimum wage. These are the things that people want. They want decent working conditions. They want a livable wage. So this is what France is trying to make happen during this time. The United States, from 1929 to 1932, industrial production fell by 50%. Unemployment was at 25% in 1933. The New Deal set up Works Progress Administration, which hired 3 million people. The Social Security Act and unemployment insurance organizations were created. These are components of the U.S. government. The president at the time of the Great Depression in the United States becomes Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And he's going to serve 4 terms as president. We don't do that anymore. We only let a president serve 2 times. And this man, Franklin D. Roosevelt, served 4 times. And then they made a law after that. But the reason he got reelected so often is because he came up with some ideas and some solutions that were helpful. And people to this day are appreciative because even though at sometimes we feel the government shouldn't do so much, laissez-faire, let the government leave us alone. When bad things happen, sometimes we need more help. So this is how come more help was available during the Great Depression in the United States under the regime of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Great Britain is the last component in that first lesson dealing with the Great Depression. The government changed from Labor Party to Conservative Party in 1931. The idea of deficit spending was introduced, but the British government did not follow it. So you have all these different things going on in Germany, France, the United States, and Great Britain. And those were the major players when we look at what happened in World War I. And at the end of a war, you know, what's going on. So this is where this chapter is going to take us. We're going to look at how these major countries are going to fare during the Great Depression. Now, the second lesson before I close this video is what's very interesting, where it talks about the rise of these dictators, the totalitarian state, fascism, authoritarian, and collectivization. Those are some words that are very, very important, meaning they will probably be on your quiz at the end of the week. So make sure you're very familiar with the definition. What is a totalitarian state? I'll tell you right now, it says it's a state in which the government aims to control the political, economic, and social and intellectual, cultural lives of its citizens. That's everything. That's everything. Totalitarian, like totality or total. Then there's fascism. That's another important word. A political philosophy that glorifies the state above the individual by emphasizing the need for a strong central government led by a dictatorial ruler. Authoritarian says favoring or enforcing strict obedience to authority, especially that of the government at the expense of personal freedom. Collectivization is a system in which private farms are eliminated. Private farms. It used to belong to your granddaddy. Not anymore. It used to belong to your mom. Not anymore. It used to belong to me. No more. Private farms eliminated, and peasants work land owned by the government. Thank you for listening.